Marilyn Monroe was one of Hollywood's most famous actresses during its golden age and became the most popular symbol of sensuality in the 20th century. Even though she died at the age of 36, 60 years later, she is still remembered around the world. You might not have seen her movies, but you have surely heard her name, perhaps from a photograph, a painting, or a legend. She is Marilyn Monroe. Monroe's beauty and sex appeal have always been synonymous with her persona. The image of a blonde, materialistic, and air-headed woman was crafted by Hollywood, and for decades, she has been a symbol consumed by countless films, entertainment media, and pop culture. However, what is little known is that the real Marilyn Monroe was vastly different from her screen persona. She was not the shallow, promiscuous woman people often describe. To focus solely on her alluring looks and to spread unfounded rumors about her is the greatest insult to her. This video takes you inside the multifaceted and authentic life of Marilyn Monroe. In 1926, in an ordinary family in Los Angeles, a little girl was born quietly. Her mother named her Norma Jeane Mortensen. No one could have predicted that one day this little girl would grow into a superstar who would captivate the entire world. From the moment she was born, Marilyn faced misfortune. Her father left home shortly after her birth, and her mother, Gladys, who worked as a film editor, led a turbulent and unstable life after having her. Norma Jeane was seen as a burden from the start, so less than 2 weeks after her birth, her mother placed her in foster care. For the next several years, she drifted between 11 different foster homes and orphanages. During this decade, her mother, Gladys, once contemplated caring for Norma Jeane herself. When Norma turned 7, Gladys took out a loan to purchase a house with plans to live together. Unfortunately, due to work pressures and hereditary factors, Gladys suffered from a severe mental illness and had to be sent to a sanitarium and hospital for treatment. From that point on, her presence in Norma Jeane's life gradually faded. The absence of her parents during her childhood left deep scars on young Norma, who managed to maintain a smile even in front of the camera. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression in America, a blonde actress named Jeane Harlow emerged in Hollywood. Jeane Harlow was one of Hollywood's most famous icons of the 1930s, known for her irresistibly sexy image and youthful grace. Norma Davis grew up watching Jeane Harlow's films and was captivated by her from a young age. In 1942, while Norma's legal guardians, the Grace family, planned to move to West Virginia, Norma was not included in their plans. Reluctantly, at only 16 and in the 10th grade, Norma was forced into marriage with a neighbor named James to avoid being sent back to an orphanage. 2 years later, Norma was given a job at Radio Aircraft Company, while James enlisted in the military. His departure once again left Norma without a sense of security. As Norma began modeling, her marriage started to crumble. Photographers from an aerial film crew visited the Radio Aircraft Company to shoot female workers for an advertisement. Norma's natural beauty caught their attention. The shyness and lack of self-confidence she usually displayed vanished in front of the camera, as if she were born to be in the spotlight. This remarkable presence on camera opened doors for her career, although her husband James did not support her ambitions. Norma longed to forge her own path, while James needed a traditional housewife. In 1946, the marriage came to an end, marking the beginning of Norma's career. Fox Studios was drawn to her natural talent and stunning looks. After signing an acting contract with the company, Norma decided to change her stage name, and from then on, Marilyn Monroe was born. The film industry of the 1940s in Hollywood was full of opportunities, but transitioning from a model to an actress was not without its challenges. In her first 5 years, she played only minor roles and even risked having her scenes cut. It wasn't until her 6th film, The Night Has Not Yet Ended, that she secured a role, albeit small yet crucial, that allowed her to transition from a film model to a bona fide actress. Soon after, her role as Miss Cassville in Comet Beauty further drew public attention. In 1951, Marilyn made her first and only appearance at the Academy Awards, where she received the Best Sound Effect Award. Determined to seize better opportunities and to compensate for her lack of education, Marilyn developed a habit of reading and exercising. Her bookshelf was filled with works by Whitman, Rilke, Tolstoy, and Sandburg, among others. In that era, it was rare to find a female actress who loved both literature and physical fitness. Of course, this did not mean that she was immune to earthly pleasures. Even a goddess finds it hard to resist desserts and fine foods. In 1952, in her 20th film, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, she delivered the legendary performance of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, cementing her status as Hollywood's icon of sensuality. In stark contrast to her film persona as a blonde, ditzy, materialistic woman, Marilyn did not harbor a strong desire for money. While she earned only $15,000 per film, her co-star Jane Russell made $150,000. Even the famous line in the movie, "I can be smart when it's important. Most don't like IT," was added at her request. At the peak of her rising career, another man came into Marilyn Monroe's life who would have a significant impact on her: Joe DiMaggio. A legendary baseball player for the New York Yankees and the first player in history to earn over $1 million, Joe was drawn to Marilyn after seeing a photograph of her playing baseball. Sparks flew when they met, yet problems seemed to arise from the beginning. Joe retired in 1951, his glory days behind him, while Marilyn's career was just taking off, with her peak still ahead. Deep down, Joe may have believed that a woman should remain humble and submissive to her husband, and he even discussed the possibility of her retiring from acting. By 1954, tensions reached a boiling point. That year, Fox Studios, without consulting Marilyn, insisted that she play the role of a seductive femme fatale in The Hypnotic Temptress. Marilyn firmly refused, stating to the media that she was fighting not for money, but for the right to review and approve her scripts. She wanted to ensure the scripts were suitable for her. As a result, Fox suspended her without pay. Ultimately, recognizing her commercial value and popularity, Fox compromised, and she did not appear in the film. At that time in the American film industry, despite the prevailing studio system that often forced actors into contract slavery, Marilyn played a crucial role in pushing for fundamental changes in the system. On January 14th of the same year, she married Joe DiMaggio at City Hall. Soon after, she starred in Billy Wilder's The 7-Year Itch, a project that proved to be extremely important for her and left an indelible mark on the world. During an outdoor shoot in New York, 2,000 audience members and photographers captured the iconic image that made her a household name. In reality, this shoot was a carefully planned publicity stunt, and the film itself handled the event much more discreetly. This publicity campaign was undeniably successful, making The 7-Year Itch the highest-grossing film of 1955 and propelling Marilyn Monroe to the status of one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars. Yet, after the meticulously orchestrated event, Marilyn did not feel happy. That very night, she spotted Joe among the crowd, and the sight of countless cameras focusing on her swaying skirt turned his face pale. That evening, Joe became physically abusive toward her. Coupled with his lack of support for her career, Marilyn became completely disillusioned with the relationship. In September, she filed for divorce, and her second marriage lasted less than 9 months. Even after her marital failure, Marilyn Monroe remained determined to pursue her career. To break free from the constraints of Fox and to gain more control over her work, she left Hollywood for Manhattan and founded her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, MMP. In New York, despite her superstardom, she was not content with her achievements and actively joined an acting studio established by Lee Strasberg, striving to improve her acting skills. She yearned to transform into a serious actress, not merely to be cast as a blonde comic in musical comedies. In 1955, inspired by her teacher Strasberg, who had developed a keen interest in Russian culture, Marilyn also grew closer to writer Arthur Miller. That fall, plans were made for an artist delegation to visit Moscow to foster cultural exchange. However, their visa applications were denied, and the trip was canceled. Meanwhile, her association with Miller brought her under the secret surveillance of the FBI. Miller was one of America's most renowned playwrights in the 1940s and 1950s. His seminal work, Death of a Salesman, had a profound impact, and he had attended writer meetings sponsored by communist sympathizers. Consequently, Miller and those close to him were constantly under government scrutiny. Although there is no conclusive evidence that Marilyn was a communist sympathizer, she detested capitalist exploitation and social injustice, and she actively engaged in charitable causes. Between 1955 and 1960, Marilyn Monroe made only 4 films. Among them, Bus Stop received unanimous praise from New York Times critics. In Some Like It Hot, her brilliant performance as the character Shuja earned her the Best Actress award at the Italian Film Awards, her first major accolade. Then, in 1959, her role in The Passionate Heart garnered her the Hollywood Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical. Although Marilyn Monroe achieved her goal of becoming an accomplished actress, the success came at a steep price. Behind the glamour, her physical and mental health, as well as her personal life, were far from the picture-perfect image she presented on screen. Genetic depression, mental illness, and the hardships of a nomadic childhood left her with a deep sense of insecurity. This constant tension often robbed her of sleep. To cope with her packed schedule the next day, she had to rely on large amounts of barbiturates to sleep and a mixture of amphetamine-laced pills to stay awake. Long-term abuse of champagne and drugs inflicted irreversible damage on her body. Marilyn was pregnant 3 times, yet every pregnancy ended in miscarriage. Her marriage to Arthur Miller also ended in 1961. Faced with a series of overwhelming challenges, she spiraled into crisis and required 3 psychotherapy sessions a week in her final years. In 1962, as Fox Studios forced a financially troubled Marilyn Monroe to participate in an unfinished film, she was driven to the brink of despair. As the title Marilyn Monroe suggested, by then she was at the very end of her rope. On May 19th, Marilyn was invited to a birthday party for Kennedy, an event that would later spawn endless rumors and controversies. At the same time, filming was on the verge of collapse, progressing with extreme difficulty. Fox Studios blamed all the setbacks on Marilyn, fired her, and demanded $500,000 in damages. In the end, the film was never completed. Even in the last 2 months of her life, Marilyn did not let the setbacks in her career and personal life defeat her. In early August, an old flame with Joe was rekindled, and the couple planned to remarry. The studio even managed to secure her a chance to restart the troubled film by replacing the original director, and plans for a biopic of her idol Jeane Harlow were put into motion. It seemed Marilyn was on the verge of an unprecedented comeback. Tragically, however, in the early hours of August 5, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her bed, never to wake again. A legendary star had fallen. For 60 years, rumors about the cause of Marilyn Monroe's death have never ceased. The speculations ranged from drug overdose and accidental death to murder, yet the exact cause remains unresolved. The only certainty is that her death was not a suicide born out of despair over life. Just 2 months before her death, the 36-year-old Marilyn had celebrated her birthday, and her last phone call with Joe occurred just half an hour before she passed away. As for the rumors of the Kennedy family's involvement in her death, they are completely unfounded. In 1964, the Liberty Pioneer Press published a pamphlet detailing various conjectures about Marilyn's death. In reality, the event was exploited by right-wing extremists as a political attack, spawning the rumor that the Kennedys had murdered her. The instigator of that claim was prosecuted in 1965. In those days, with limited media channels, newspapers, and TV news dominated public discourse, making it easy for the public to accept so-called authoritative information. These rumors reached their peak during the assassinations of John F. Kennedy in 1963 and Robert Kennedy in 1968, later giving rise to further theories implicating gangsters in her murder. Over the years, despite numerous searches for alleged diaries and tapes, no concrete evidence was ever found, only orally transmitted hearsay. The rumor-mongers cared little for the truth. They were more interested in profiting from the sensational story of a celebrity. Looking back on Marilyn Monroe's short yet legendary 36-year life, the absent father, the mentally ill mother, the lonely years in foster care, a tumultuous career in film, 3 failed marriages, and 3 miscarriages. Each factor seemed to test the limits of this seemingly delicate woman. Yet in the 29.5 films in which she appeared, she always shone brilliantly, her smile dazzling like a starry sky. It is hard to imagine the torment she endured behind the scenes. Marilyn Monroe's life was never tainted by Hollywood's dark side. She did not chase money. Despite generating nearly $200 million in revenue for Fox Studios, she consistently earned the lowest salary among her leading peers. She pursued independence and success in her career, daring to challenge authority by founding her own production company. She supported civil rights, opposed racial discrimination, and helped Fitzgerald perform at Hollywood clubs. She actively participated in charity events and various fundraisers. In front of the camera, she exuded natural charm and charisma, not merely a dumb blonde, but a woman who longed to be taken seriously as an actress. In every frame, she shone with a radiant smile, embodying the best version of herself, Norma Jeane, who transformed into Marilyn Monroe on screen. Her legendary story is still remembered and will continue to be celebrated for generations to come. That concludes this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. See you in the next video. Goodbye.